You know, the advice to people if they're abducted is to engage your abductor and to make yourself a person to them.
I think about Meredith every day, every single day. You know, she was the all-American girl. And nobody deserves this to happen to them, but especially somebody like this. She had a bright future, no question. And for it to end this way, just affected a lot of people. I can imagine her family and friends how it's affected them, but you know, it was a long week in January.
She was 24 years old, a University of Georgia graduate. She was trained in martial arts, and she had a black lab puppy named Ella that she adored. And she had a lot of friends, and she was smart and feisty, and on that holiday, she decided to take Ella up to the mountains to go hiking.
So initially we thought, and I think the police thought, or the authorities thought, the police hadn't been called in yet, that it was a missing person. She might have gotten lost on the trail or something like that, or injured herself.
Well, when we first heard that there was a overdue hiker, it was pretty clear that this was a unique situation. And we had people coming in and out of the North Georgia mountains over the course of the search. At any given time, we would have 2 or 3 reporters plus photographers up there.
Before we were called, there was an interview done with some folks who were on the trail that Monday that found some things that concerned them. A police baton, a couple of water bottles, a dog leash, and some treats. And they found it in an area where they thought the ground had been disturbed, and this was a former police officer, so he was thinking, well, maybe there'd been a struggle. So after the local authorities learned of that information is, I think, the trigger that caused them to call us to come in, just in case it turned out to be something more than an overdue hiker.
By Thursday, the whole state was looking pretty much. I mean, this was everywhere.
We figured out that there were probably 19 different police agencies up here. So our plan from the law enforcement perspective, we had set up a tip line, and we decided that we needed to answer the phones, you know, like on the first ring. And once we put out the information through the media about the tip line, we started getting calls immediately. We want to talk to everybody who'd been on the trail New Year's Day and anybody that had seen Meredith or anyone else with her. And we immediately started getting calls.
This was a unique situation in that they were telling us everything. They were using the media. They saw us as a way to get out the word when they were looking for Meredith Emerson. Then when they had a suspect, the investigators told us that the media in this case was very critical to them. The investigators were telling the family everything, which is not something that they normally do. They normally hold things back. But in this case, they were telling us everything. And they genuinely needed us to help with their investigation.
You know, the media, they were so helpful in pushing information out. And once they pushed out the tip line number, and then once we got the call that identified Gary Hilton, we put his picture out, and they pushed it out immediately. So I can't say enough about the cooperation that the media gave us during that week. It was really good.
There were so many chances in that, to this day, investigators still agonize over it.
The biggest one, though, really didn't involve law enforcement so much as it did Hilton's former employer.
John Tabor, an Atlanta businessman who had employed Hilton off and on. He's the one who first gave the investigators Hilton's name.
The employer waited 2.5, 3 hours before he notified law enforcement that he had gotten the call. So, and they were about, I think the investigator told us about 5 or 10 minutes away from where Hilton had made that call at the Huddle House at that point. We know that from Hilton's testimony that Meredith was still alive at that time.
That was the first time I think that, we were already 2 hours behind the 8 ball, and that kind of hurt. So of course we covered that area up that night. I went to the little restaurant where he had called from because I was familiar with that area.
Okay, 911, what's the exact location? I had the person of interest in that missing woman case is at this Chevron gas station on Ashford Dunwoody.
Chevron gas station at Ashford Dunwoody?
Yeah.
You said the man is there?
The van is here, the dog is here, the red dog, and I saw the man's face, and I've been watching the news, and I know it's him. He's got a green long sleeve sweatshirt, and he's wearing a hat, and he's emptying all this stuff out of his van. Pillows and a blanket, and it looks like he's got a sleeping bag right now. Taking it all to the trash. It's definitely,
And the dumpster is
looking around like he is as guilty as sin.
Okay, sir, and the dumpster is at the rear of the location?
Yeah, the dumpster, well, it's kind of right in the front. It's right by the car wash.
Okay.
I can go take him down if you want.
No, sir, stay right there.
Okay.
Okay, hold on, sir.
He looks like he's finishing up. You guys gotta hurry. He's got stuff in bags that he's emptied onto the ground, and he's taking load by load to the dumpster behind the car wash. This is the third backpack we've seen him take to the dumpster. Oh, I'm just shaking. You guys, is there somebody en route?
Yes, sir.
Here we go. Here comes the cops. Yes.
Yes. Police are there?
Yes. Yes. They got him.
They got him?
I mean, they don't have him yet, but they're getting out. So they got him now. Here, 2 cruisers pulled up on him. 2 of the cab's finest.
I think we were all frustrated the fact that, we had him, but we didn't have her. I said, we got to get this man a lawyer. And so I called the district attorney, and I said, we need to get this man a lawyer, like today. We need to know where she is. The family needs some closure. I think we all know what has happened here.
The body will be approximately 40 yards or 120 feet. It's covered by leaves and brush. The head will be missing.
Some of my agents were there waiting on me to get there. And I gave them the specific directions, just as Hilton gave to me, how to get to the body. I get a radio call and that they had found her. And I was real anxious about this, that I had to call the Emersons. And I called Peggy Bailey, who was the friend in Athens. And I told Peggy, I said, we found her. And I asked her to tell the Emersons. And she said she would. And I remember hanging the phone up, and in the first call, I didn't tell Peggy that there's any circumstances around her decapitation. And once I hung up, I said, they're going to find this out, because there was no news people down there then, but there were enough people that I knew that it would leak out that we had 2 different crime scenes. So I knew I had to call them back, and so I called back. And told Peggy that. And then we started working the crime scenes.
Meredith Emerson could do anything. She is feisty, she is strong, she's tiny and petite, 120 pounds, but let me tell you, I have every hope that if anybody could, she can run those mountains.
And really one of the most compelling things about it was the fact that, in his own words, she almost kicked his ass, essentially, and overcame him and got away.
It's when she lost her footing that he got the upper hand. Because he started out with a knife and the baton. He left the baton behind. But she put up a fight.
Then it was a mistake to pick Meredith. Yeah. Because as you said, she almost whipped my ass. You said, didn't you say, I bet that 120-pound girl almost whipped your ass? She almost whipped my ass. Amen. She damn sure did.
Well, you know, Hilton told us that after he grabbed Meredith on the trail, and as they walked down through the woods to the parking lot, he put her in his van and they drove away. And he said that Meredith says, "What about Ella?" And he came back and got Ella based on that.
Even when she was in danger, she worried about Ella.
Well, Gary Hilton was, you know, I think he had a troubled childhood, but he joined the Army, became a paratrooper. He tested high on IQ. And actually, he was a drifter, basically, before, at least in the year before Meredith's death. I mean, he was just driving around, even North Carolina and Florida in this white van. So he, you know, was aimless, and what made it turn to, what made him go from there to a killer? Who knows, you know? I mean, there was no remorse when he discussed Meredith or any of the killings. There was no like, I can't believe I did that or something, you know. It was like, I'm Gary Hilton and this is what I do.
When you're going out to kill somebody, if you're seen by a single other person on the trail, then that day's screwed. But when you procrastinate because you don't want to get up and kill someone, and you let it go and you say, I won't kill anyone today. We'll just go hiking with my dog, have fun. We're doomed anyway. And so you get down to the point where, well, it was like Meredith. I had $40 money and several days food. I was going to have to kill somebody in that period of time. Okay? And when you get down to the bitter end, you ignore all the rules you set, which I did, which got me caught.
It was cold-blooded. I mean, and you know, when he killed Meredith, he was leading her on to think, I'm going to let you go.
He was not only smart, he was cavalier, he was arrogant, he was egotistical. He would talk about his time with Emerson. What struck me about that is he would talk about it as if they were on a date. He boasted about how he gave her the good sleeping bag to make sure she was warm because it was very, very cold on the mountain during that time. The temperatures were in single digits and there was snow. He talked about her as if they were enjoying their time together, which you knew was not true.
There comes a point, they fight, and then they submit.
Right.
And a lot of it is because of me.
Right.
I reassure them. That it's going to be okay, but just quit fighting or you're going to get hurt.
The Georgia evidence was like a treasure trove. It linked him to the case in Florida and to the case in North Carolina. And that was the reason that the prosecutors and the investigators were okay with them giving him a deal, because they knew that they had the evidence that they needed to convict him and get the death penalty in Florida. And they also knew that once he was convicted in Florida, the details of Meredith Emerson's death would be used for what they call aggravating circumstances, which is evidence that shows the evilness of the person who has been convicted and why they should be sentenced to die.
Gary Hilton is on death row in Florida. I think it's actually a little surprising that he's still alive, not because he's on death row, but because his health was not good. He had diabetes. And I can remember being told, you know, when he was arrested, you know, He probably won't make it to death row. He'll probably die before then, but he's still around and just awaiting his turn.